For so many of us, food has been a form of self-soothing. It's been the thing we turn to when we're stressed, when we're sad, when we're overwhelmed, even just bored, even just in those moments where nothing is bad, but nothing is happening. So we just eat, right? To feel like we're doing something, right? It's the late night ice cream after a long, draining day. It's the snacks we eat mindlessly while we're curled up on the couch trying to quiet our racing thoughts. It's the meals that feel like a warm hug when everything feels cold, even, you know, even celebratory eating when we're in a time of celebration, but maybe, we're not necessarily super hungry, but we eat anyway because it reminds us of another time that's nostalgic. And beyond the food itself, there's a ritual. There's the act of preparing something comforting. That moment of relief, exhale, kind of just like a settling that happens when you take that first bite. And the familiarity of turning to something predictable when, life often can feel uncertain, unpredictable, really just edgy, and it's difficult to live in that. So when we start working on healing and we begin to unlearn our emotional overeating, it's not just about breaking the habit, it's about letting go and releasing something that's almost felt like a friend, a confidant. And that's where the grief can come in, because this engagement that we have with food and eating, it's a relationship. It's a relationship. And there's connection and love and emotional attachment there. And whenever we need to let go of something that we're emotionally attached to, there's going to be grief. And so when you start making changes, you might feel worse before you start to feel better. And that's something that I want to normalize for you. That's something that I want you to be prepared for. And most people will not prepare you for that, which is why it's not often talked about. And it's what usually ends up sabotaging people in the long run. Because suddenly, even if, suddenly when when you decide to heal, and if you are in a program or something that doesn't address this emotional attachment issue, what happens is it feels very jarring. And suddenly the thing that you've used to numb stress or soften the edges of a hard day isn't there in the same way anymore. Right? Sometimes you can you can sugarcoat over it with a new plan or like a new program that gives you new information and, things you can substitute for it, right? Like, oh, here's a new macro plan I have to follow. Like your brain can get distracted and can transfer that energy to a new program, but only for a short time, right? Only for a short time, because before long you end up missing your old friend. And so that's why we immediately want to talk about this. I want you to start recognizing this insight, this awareness, this emotional intelligence as one of the most important things that you have to work on if you really want to heal emotional overeating and binging. Because when this behavior can't be there in the same way anymore without that immediate comfort, you're going to notice that emotions start to rise to the surface. Emotions that maybe you haven't had to fully feel before. And that could be really, really overwhelming. It can feel unfamiliar, and it can make you miss emotional overeating and binging, even when you know that it won't serve you in the long run. And the grief can also show up as nostalgia, the longing for the safety and predictability of old patterns, even if they weren't healthy. Because the truth is, and I think we know this when it comes to romantic relationships, we know this when it comes to any dynamic that's interpersonal. Just because something wasn't good for you doesn't mean it didn't feel comforting. So if you're in this place and you're listening to this today and you are in the journey of healing from emotional overeating, from binging, and you feel like it's very up and down, and you're struggling with discomfort of change, right? It's like not linear. You have a couple great days where you feel really aligned with yourself, and then all of a sudden you don't. Like, this is normal. I want you to hear me say this. I want you to hear me really when I say you're not doing anything wrong. You're just moving through the part that no one warns you about. And often most people just give you more stuff to distract you from it. Right? You are in the part now where you are learning to sit with yourself in a new way.